Here is one of the new Aeronca champions, waiting to be flown by its proud new owner. She has asked a friend to accompany her today on a flight to Middletown, Ohio. There they will inspect the Aeronca Aircraft Corporation's plant number 1, where America's number 1 low-cost personal airplane is manufactured. Aeronca is the largest manufacturer of airplanes in the world. Notice the wide cabin door on this champion and the conveniently placed step that contributes so much to the ease of entering this large, comfortable cabin. An easy flip of the propeller and this sturdy 65-horsepower Continental engine with its impulse magneto jumps into action with an eager response. The girls taxi down to the end of the field in preparation for their takeoff. The tail comes up quickly on the Aeronca. After a short run that enables this plane to operate from the smallest field, it lifts from the ground. With its climbing ability of over 500 feet per minute, obstacles around the field soon lose their former importance. That's the way to travel. No dirt and dust, no complicated traffic congestion. The girls will arrive at Middletown just as fresh and rested as when they left this morning. Here is the municipal airport at Middletown, Ohio. Notice the row of Aeronca champions lined up on the flyaway line, waiting to be delivered. Here is the home of America's number 1 low-cost plane. The factory has pushed out in all directions with many new buildings added since the war. During the war, the Aeronca Corporation built military planes and for its superior achievement received the coveted Army-Navy E Award. On the far side of the buildings is the testing line, where all Aeroncas are carefully flight tested and inspected before they're moved over to the flyaway line for delivery. The girls are about to land alongside the Aeronca factory. Notice how effortlessly the champion rides on the cushioned Aeronca oleo landing gear. After landing, the girls taxi up the line. Here they are met by the line chief, who directs the girls where to park on this busy airport. And after introducing themselves, they leave for the front entrance to the factory, where they'll start their tour. We are now viewing the modernistic entrance to this functional aircraft plant. The Aeronca Aircraft Corporation is one of the first aircraft manufacturers in the industry and was the first manufacturer to recognize the urgent demand for a light personal plane. Let us go through this door and meet some of the people who direct this splendid organization. First is John Friedlander, president of Aeronca Aircraft Corporation. Lee Smith, executive vice president. Al Helmers, secretary and treasurer. Bob Davis, general sales manager. Charlie Smith, assistant general sales manager. Floyd Simmons, Eastern Regional Sales Manager. Kit Carson, Western Regional Sales Manager. And Don Garrett, Regional Sales Manager for the Southern area. This is a view of the conference room where many of these men gather for frequent meetings. On our way to the factory, we'll see a few of the departments that constitute the corporation. This is a view of the accounting department. Here is Bud Cooderer, chief accountant. Here is Phil Shearer, head of service and parts. The service and parts department, through its field representatives and manufacturing division, ensures parts and service for your Aeronca all over the world. They can supply parts for Aeronca's aircraft that were manufactured 8 years ago, and will continue that policy in the future. Here is a brief glimpse of Vice President Elmer Sutherland as we pass on to the purchasing department. This is Vice President in charge of purchasing, Ed Weideman. In the purchasing department, all requests for supplies and materials are coordinated and acquired through this centralized system. This ensures a constant and uniform flow of material into the assembly line to ensure maximum production and low cost for America's #1 low-cost plane. In the engineering department, years of intensive experimental and development work have been devoted to making Aeronca the #1 plane. The detailed planning and analyzing necessary to achieve maximum performance, maximum safety, and minimum cost is done by these highly trained engineers. Here is Ray Hermes, chief engineer. Beyond the engineering department, we see a portion of the Aeronca styling section. Here, the comfortable interiors, the smart styling, the sparkling color combinations and designs are planned. Special attention is given to selecting and matching fabrics, which are chosen to harmonize with the interior of the Aeronca Champion, both in tone and finish. Here is Lathrop Nelson, General Production Manager. Here is General Superintendent Val Baltz on the left, talking with Al Totten, Superintendent of Plant #1. Now let's go into the shop and see how America's #1 low-cost plane is manufactured. As we enter the shop, we get a general view of the assembly line method employed in this modern aircraft factory. Our eyes sweep from the wing and fuselage assembly lines to final assembly. Let's start with some of the individual machines to see the component parts manufactured before they go into sub-assembly sections. Here, most of the small parts are machined. Parts such as the oleo landing gear, wing fittings, and other parts requiring high-precision machining. This is a universal turret lathe, sometimes called a screw machine. The machine is now fabricating a torque arm bushing. Here you see the automatic punch presses, which create fast production at lower cost. Stampings are all made exactly alike by this method. In this section, the milling of certain parts is completed. By manufacturing these parts in the Aeronca plant, a better control of this production is maintained. The mill at the left is turning down brake pedal arms from raw casting. This automatic centerless grinder turns and polishes parts with outside diameters that must be reduced and which require a high degree of accuracy. Notice how the small torque arm bushing is automatically ejected upon completion of the grinding process. You are now viewing a 175-ton blanking and piercing hydro press, commonly known as a clearing press, in which aluminum and sheet metal parts are stamped out on special cutting dies. This machine is an automatic 12-foot power brake where sheet aluminum moldings are made for trimming cabins and streamlining various parts of the plane. The operation that you are witnessing is a portion of the fabrication of the side panel section for the cabin interior. This 500-ton press is one of the machines that lends itself to mass production. You are witnessing the Aeronca Champion cabin door being pressed from one sheet of aluminum. Also on this hydro press are stamped out nose cowlings, instrument panels, and various parts for the carburetor and cabin heaters. All parts are carefully checked for quality, dimensions, and machining. Trained inspectors carefully scrutinize each part to ensure that it is within the prescribed tolerances and specifications. This thorough and careful inspection contributes to making the Aeronca the plane you'll want to fly. Now, this machine is the Rockwell hardness tester, where precision parts are carefully checked for hardness. This machine is typical of the precision instruments used throughout the entire inspection department. This machine is the automatic router, or it is sometimes referred to as a profile cutter. This machine enables the operator to cut out multiple parts by one operation, using a precision template and high-speed cutter. This is the carbon tetrachloride degreaser, which employs heated vapor to remove grease and other foreign substances from parts prior to cadmium plating or zinc chromating operations. These metal parts are arranged in trays and lowered into the vapor bath by means of an electric hoist. The next department we visit is the sub-assembly section of primary assembly, in which the skills of many girls are utilized. This girl is working on the ignition switch panel box. The operation being performed is the assembling of the stick-controlled torque tube for the Aeronca Champion. Here the pitot tube is being attached to the airspeed indicator, which has already been installed in the instrument panel. And here the aileron bell crank, which will be used in the wing, is assembled. This part is an aluminum casting fitted with self-aligning ball bearings. The operator here is sandblasting the streamlined wing struts in preparation for priming. Like most other operations that go into the production of an Aeronca airplane, the welded component parts are produced in sub-assemblies which are fabricated in jig fixtures. This is the tail section jig, in which the 3 longeron fuselage is fabricated. The joint being welded is a panel point of the fuselage, illustrating the care exercised in welding the Aeronca fuselage. The master jig shown here is where sub-assembly parts are combined and the fuselage is completed. The heavy 3 U-channels prevent any misalignment and ensure that fuselage fittings are within their tolerances. This fitting clearly shows the extra margin of safety that is incorporated in the structural design of the Aeronca. The welding shown in this view illustrates the accurate beading and the high-quality workmanship incorporated in the Aeronca airplane. This is the cabin step affording easy access to either front or rear seat. The fairing bulkheads, stringers, and window frames are being installed in primary station number 1. The assembly line on which the fuselage travels moves 22 feet in 56 minutes. In primary assembly station number 1, the controls are installed, consisting of rudders and brakes. Also, instrument panel, all control assemblies, torque tube stick control, and metal flock aluminum side panels are installed here. This view shows installation of a 13-gallon all-aluminum gas tank. The fuselage travels from here into station number 3, where the seats, upholstering, and safety belts are installed. That is also the primary inspection station. In primary station number 4, the headline upholstering is done. This headlining is doped securely in place, eliminating stitching and unsightly screws which would present an unfinished appearance from the interior of the cabin. Zippers are conveniently placed in the top of the cabin to enable inspection of moving parts and controls and for easy access to the trim tab friction lock control knob. The fuselage is moving on rotating carriers, enabling the girls to move the fuselage in any position in order to facilitate doping the airplane fabric to the structure. The fabric is pre-doped, having the equivalent of 2 coats of clear dope on the fabric before it is attached to the fuselage structure. From the time the fuselage structure leaves the master jig, it remains on that fuselage carrier until it is transferred to the electric overhead conveyor system, which transports it to the dope room. And here the young lady is taping the stringers and reinforcing the seams with pink edge tape to give additional wearing surfaces at points where wear may occur. Now the fuselage has been transferred to the powered overhead conveyor. The covering has been completed, and it is now being conveyed to the dope room for application of clear and pigmented dope. Still on the overhead conveyor, the fuselage is leaving the dope room. All operations are carried out while the fuselage is on that overhead conveyor. The plane has now reached station number 1 of final assembly, where the famous Aeronca oleo landing gear is being installed. The landing gear bolts are tapped firmly into place by means of a brass mallet, for close tolerances must be maintained in the landing gear installation. Here the testing of tail wheel, horizontal stabilizers, elevators, and rudders is installed. This is what is known as engine makeup line, where component parts are installed on engines before final assembly. This man is attaching the exhaust stacks and carburetor air scoop. The spark plugs are installed with a torque wrench, assuring proper attention to pressure applied to the delicate-sided plug. The Continental 65 horsepower engine moves along the overhead conveyor system and is installed in the fuselage by means of an electric hoist. Particular attention was given to designing this installation to ensure ease of maintenance and service. The entire engine mount can be taken out by removing 4 bolts. The firewall is made of one-piece aluminized steel with a back covering of spun glass, soundproof and fireproof material. The one-piece preformed plexiglass windshield is installed at this point. This windshield is designed for maximum streamlining and for clear, unobstructed vision. It is held in place by metal screws and may be replaced with great facility. Spruce spar inspection. The spruce spars are being checked for moisture content and are allowed a tolerance of between 8 and 12%. These spars are carefully checked throughout for grain, annular rings, flaws, or blemishes in the material. The spars are made up of laminated spruce. The front and rear spars are being assembled in the wing jig. The center compression tube is being put into position. All metal, one-piece ribs are slid on the spars. The ribs nearest the camera are the aileron bay ribs. All of the ribs used in the Aeronca airplane are pressed out of aluminum and are formed from one single sheet, which is flanged for added strength and rigidity. The operation being performed now is the installation of the wing root and strut point fittings. Plastic inserts are put into the spars at points through which bolts must pass in order to prevent crushing of the fibers in the wood. All holes drilled in the spar are made on a highly accurate spar drilling jig using a multiple head drill. This jig ensures proper fitting of spars and conformity throughout all wings. Another sub-assembly operation is being performed at this point. The wingtip bow and the 2 wingtip ribs are being bound together. This sub-assembly is now installed on the wing panel. The detachable wingtip is another Aeronca feature which enables rapid mass production. The bell crank, which was earlier shown, is now being installed to the rear spar of the wing. Control cables which connect this mechanism to the control system are being threaded through the ribs. This is a wing aligning jig where the drag wires and compression tubes are rigged to the right tension to assure correct flying characteristics. This is the application of the metal leading edge to the wing in preparation for permanent attachment. Convenient hold-down clamps are shown here, holding the leading edge of the wing preparatory to its being screwed permanently into place. Inspection of wing prior to covering. Here again, prior wing assembly is carefully inspected and all control cables are checked in detail. This again is two-coat pre-doped fabric. The wing cover is being slipped into position and tailored to fit the wing. Here again, the fabric is doped to the wing structure. Now this fabric is exactly the same as was used on the fuselage and has the equivalent of 2 coats of clear dope prior to being placed on the wing. Here the fabric is cut to size and doped securely in place around the trailing edge of the aileron bay. This type of work is most expertly performed by women who are best adapted to fabric work. The fabric is being attached to the ribs of the wing by Parker Kalon screws spaced 2 to 4 inches apart. A 3/4 inch piece of tape is attached to the rib flange, and the PK screws are driven through the fabric into the tape and screwed securely into the aluminum rib, ensuring proper attachment to the wing. This scene shows the screw in place prior to its covering by the pink edge tape lying to its left. The wing is now being carried on the overhead monorail conveyor from the wing assembly department into the dope room. All air ejected from the dope room has been washed and is free from paint particles. Waterfall-type spray booths aid in keeping to a minimum the amount of spray dust reaching the workman. The modern dope room is completely air-conditioned and as fireproof as it is possible to make an installation of this kind. Here are the wings coming out of the dope room. The NC numbers are applied at this point and painted to the wings. These NC numbers are assigned to the plane when it is manufactured and are in effect during the life of the plane. They are assigned to the manufacturer in blocks of several thousands. Installation of the nose bowl and air maze filter. The one-piece nose bowl is formed on the 500-ton hydro press shown in the earlier scenes. The propeller is carefully seated in position and the propeller hub is set. Considerable care is exercised in installing this propeller so as not to damage that propeller shaft. The 2 wing panels are placed in position and bolted to the fuselage in this final assembly operation. A drift pin is placed in the front wing fitting. The front wing strut is now moved into position. The plane now receives its final inspection before being turned over to the pre-flight department. A view from this position will show us more clearly the overall final assembly station. The motor is carefully tuned before being turned over to the test pilots. Here are some of the test pilots getting some pointers from Lou Waring, Chief Experimental Test Pilot. Compensating the compass is done on the field compass rose prior to flight. Now the plane has been turned over to the testing section, and here comes Jim Rosing, Chief Test Pilot for Aeronca. He makes a careful inspection of the tail group, then he looks at the propeller installation before getting into the plane. After starting the engine, it taxis out to the far side of the field for takeoff. Here he checks the magnetos. And then, after making a 360-degree clearing turn, he heads into the wind for takeoff. He is now making a few jins in the air before putting the Aeronca Champion through its paces. Let's skip this and go down and see Jim land. Here he comes for one of his usual superior landings. Gosh, I hope that dog is going the right way. After the line, Jim looks over his checklist and okays this plane for delivery. He then enters the billing section to turn over the card that accompanies all airplanes through the production stages. It is from this office that pilots receive their airplanes for delivery. Here come some of those pilots from the delivery office now. They're getting in the station wagon, so they're probably going out to the flyaway line to take delivery on their new Aeronca champions. Yes, that's where they're going. Each one to pick up his own Aeronca champion from what seems like an endless line of airplanes. But it's really only a 2-day supply, as Aeronca, with present production, manufactures more airplanes than any other company in the world. Here comes the first one around the corner. While they line up for takeoff, let's back up so we can see a little better. There they go. 6 new Aeronca champions taking off together. At the rate they're building them now, it won't be long before the skies are filled with Aeroncas. Aeronca, the plane you'll want to fly.